Everybody, it's Ian King, athlete advocate, coach, educator, and founder of King Sports International. Today, we are very honoured to have with us a high-level KSI coach in Tom Legath. And Tom is going to talk to us about his journey, which will give great insights into the pros and cons of opening up your own training facility. And I just want to speak to that for a moment. From a historical perspective, pre-2000, that wasn't on the radar. Post-2000, it was a heavily advertised opportunity for people to allegedly upscale their business, et cetera, increase their leveraged income, et cetera. Obviously, I'm not sure whether it's been completely transparently reported on, but will definitely be transparent in today's interview. So, Tom, thank you for putting aside your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here. Happy to share my story.
I like to always go back a little bit, Tom. I like to go back, and obviously, we weren't born into the physical preparation industry, so we don't have to go back to birth per se. But having said that, which of the mighty states of the United States were you born in?
Pennsylvania, in Allentown. The Billy Joel song. I think it's Billy Joel.
I was about to say Billy Joel. Yeah. No, it struck me straight away as it does. Living here in Allentown. Fantastic. So you went to school in the area, and where did you move, and where did you go to high level school?
Well, my whole family's from the Lehigh Valley, which is where Allentown is part of a few cities there. And I went to university at Temple in Philadelphia. I grew up kind of a little bit outside of Philadelphia. High school, my whole family's in that region, so I'm the only one that came to California or even left Pennsylvania. My family is German in descent, so most of my grandparents are like first generation Americans.
Wow, a lot of strong history there in the German culture. Excellent. So, what did you come to LA for? There's actually a fantastic song I'm trying to remember by Tennessee Tabletop. Anyway, that's another story in itself. But what did you move to LA for?
Well, just to give you a little bit of backstory, for just my whole life, I grew up Catholic, and so a lot of what my dad would say is like, don't talk about yourself, be humble, or you can't do that. You have to do what I say. So from an early age, I just really wanted to do things that I wanted to do, and I couldn't wait to grow up to be able to do that. And I had it in my mind that California was like this really fun place. And if I went there, all this opportunity would just be great. And it would be better than the Catholic upbringing that I had as a kid. And you asked me why I came here too. The other reason was what I studied, as a result of that as a kid, I also really saw my family unhappy. And happiness was really important to me. It was a major goal in life. I'm not going to compromise that. And I didn't want to go to school where I would have to wear a suit during the day. I didn't like dressing up. So I studied film, as it was kind of an option that university had. It wasn't necessarily a passion of mine, but it was anti-business, if you will. So when I graduated school, there was an opportunity to do an internship in the entertainment industry in California, and I jumped on it, and I was here the very next day, right after graduation.
Well, like I said before, Tennessee mountaintop by Kid Rock, palm trees and beautiful hips, man, it doesn't get any better than this. And he's talking about California. So when you got to California, was it, everything that you dreamed of?
It was a little bit overwhelming at first, I think. I mean, I was 21, I had just graduated school, and it was a bit of a shock. Like when I moved here, I couldn't believe that I lived here now. That was just so far from home. It was the first time that I was going to have to pay rent. I lived at school, but that's not quite the same. And I had to find a job. And then the freeways here, the first time I drove on the freeways here, it was just really jam-packed with cars. And it was like sensory overload. But at the same time, I was excited because, you see those palm trees, the beaches are nearby, there's sun everywhere, like Hollywood, it's pretty exciting as a young, early 20-something, what's going to happen,
And talking about Hollywood, I believe that you got closer than you may have even imagined. Tell us about what you first did from income wise when you got into the City of Angels.
So my first job, most of my jobs in entertainment were as an assistant. So I was like a secretary I worked for a couple of talent managers in a smaller company, and then I worked for a really big time talent manager who represented like Renee Zellweger and Josh Duhamel and a number of other famous actors and actresses. And it was like a movie. If you've ever seen the most recent, what is it called? Devil Wears Prada, that movie.
Yes.
It was a film version of that. And there was even a movie in the 90s called Swimming with Sharks. And that movie was a lot like my life every day. In fact, when I saw that, I couldn't stop laughing because that kind of thing happened to me every day. And as far as income goes, I'll just give you an idea. You don't get paid a lot as an assistant because the film industry has this perception that we're awesome. We're giving you the opportunity to work for us, and they barely pay you anything. So I think I made like $20,000 a year, and my boss probably on a down year would make like $1 million, $1.5 million. So, and I ran his life. He didn't even have a computer in the office. He did everything for them. So it was an interesting experience.
Well, you got over that. You got over that need to be associated with high-profile people pretty quickly, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that he did, he was just, maybe he's a good human somewhere, but that really wasn't apparent. And I just noticed that a lot of people in the entertainment industry were that way. They didn't have a lot of respect for the people, and they were manipulative. And I'm certainly capable of adapting to the environment I'm in. And I just kind of recognized that I was adopting some of those behaviors, and I really didn't like it. And I'd rather get paid to help people than to use and manipulate them.
So I just want to be real clear, your boss wasn't Harvey Weinstein, just putting it out there. That's the joke.
No, but I'll share a quick story with you. He knew Harvey Weinstein. He was friends with him. So there were times where Harvey would call the office, and, as an assistant, you listen in. And I said to people when that happened, this is not a surprise. Everyone in the industry knows about this, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I did get to, by association, experience some of that culture.
So what was your next transition and why?
Well, I played sports growing up. I played soccer and I was a baseball player. Those were my two dominant sports, but I played a little bit of basketball, played roller hockey. I mean, I played everything. I loved playing sports. I loved being outside. Growing up in Pennsylvania, most days I was out with my friends in the woods because we had a wooded area, just messing around. So being in California, it's beautiful out here. And I didn't like being in the office. You're looking outside, it's sunny, and you go into the office in the morning, you leave when the sun has gone down. And I really wanted to be able to enjoy that. And then second of all, I was sacrificing my health, and I like to train. I like to be in the gym. And so it made it more difficult to stick with my fitness goals. And I thought, what can I do to help people for a living where I still get to do what I like to do? And then also I had this perception, and obviously I became a trainer. If I become a trainer, I had this perception that I'll have more free time. And it seems like personal trainers make a lot of money because, granted, remember back then I'm only making $20,000, so $50,000 a year would be a substantial pay increase. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try that. So I got certified, and I did it part-time for a year, and then after a year, I started doing it full-time.
So who did you get certified with?
NASM, which I think is still a mainstream certification.
Yeah, absolutely. And who did you first work for?
LA Fitness.
And what was after the first 12 months, what were your thoughts regarding your move? I mean, obviously, anytime we make a transition in life, we're always judging whether we should or shouldn't. Should we go back to where we came from, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I liked being in the gym a lot more than I did but in my manager's office. So I was happy to be where I wanted to be. LA Fitness didn't pay much. It was about $15 an hour back then. So that part wasn't too good, but once I left the entertainment industry, I then went to Equinox, and that was a bit of a pay increase for sure.
So in the first year or two in the industry, what sort of money were you making, generally speaking?
Yeah, so with Equinox, I think my first year, I'm gonna say somewhere between 35 and 45,000 maybe.
So industry average at the time.
It was probably even lower than that. I mean, Equinox is a higher end, and I don't think you guys have them everywhere else. From anyone else around the world, Equinox in the US is probably the highest or one of the highest paid if you're a trainer. And so I would have to imagine if you worked somewhere else, you would be making 25 to 35 or 25 to 30.
So you're above industry average at that time. And I would agree with you, because back then, and we're talking a few years ago, it would have been 30, 35, might have been the industry average.
Yeah, this was back in 2007 is when I started at Equinox.
Yeah. So that was 15 years ago. So definitely the industry average would have been around 30 for a PT in the US. So you're living the dream. What's a day look like in the dream?
So I usually started with clients around 5 or 5:30 in the morning. So I'd have to wake up around 4, which is just, that part sucks. And probably I was pretty busy, I'd say until 9 or 10. And then I'd have a break for maybe an hour or two. And I'd do my midday training between like 11 to 2, I would say most days. And then I would have at Equinox, and then I would have clients in the afternoon at like 5 until maybe like 8 or 9 at night. So in between, there wasn't much else. You just stay at the gym. The gym becomes your life. The gym, people that work at the gym become your associations, and that's pretty much it.
So 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. That's 15-hour day, pretty standard. Just a standard day in the industry as a PT in America.
Yes. So although Equinox pays better per hour and they do have incentives to make a lot of money, this is the thing I didn't like about it. And that's, if you wanted to hit any of the bonuses they offered, you'd have to be doing even more than that. It was like you'd have to live at the gym. And when I started training at Equinox, I was 25 or 26. So it didn't really bother me that much that I didn't have a personal life a whole lot. In fact, I was busy, chasing girls more than I cared about being in a relationship. And I was just happy to have a little bit more money than I had before too. So that all of that was a new thing for me.
So how many years into being a PT did you start to look then for, there might be something more? Like what was that trigger, and what action did you take?
It didn't really take too long, because I left Equinox a little bit before the 3-year mark. So probably in the second year, it was actually a member that was thinking of opening a gym, that he wanted to invest in it. And he thought that he's like, I think you would be good at running it. And it turns out, I think he was more interested in, at the Equinox gym where I worked, there was, a lot of gay guys. So I've always been able to attract attention because I'm a good looking guy. But he put it in my head that I could run a gym. And going back to, I want to have time to do what I want to do in life. I didn't want to, and I wanted to be happy. And I knew that having money would help me do that. So I started to, now that I had this in my mind that I could own a business and, say that, I was like, okay, this is interesting. But it ended up, that didn't go anywhere. For like about a year, he wasted my time and the time of another trainer. And we would just meet and talk about nothing. But that was when the seed was planted.
So that didn't come through, but you got teased by the possibilities. And was there any other influence in the industry that led you to believe that was a good idea, or is it just purely on the guidance that you'd received from the former client at the gym?
I can't remember if there was any particular industry influence, but at the time, working at Equinox, you are heavily involved in the trends. I mean, Equinox jumps on that stuff. That's what they make their money on. They don't care if you can train. They just want, if clients are renewing their packages, then they're good. So they tend to have classes that involve all the equipment and everything else. So I was exposed to a lot of what was popular and trendy. And I definitely was adopting it and buying into it. And then growing up in the family that I did, my dad said at a young age, this was something I still remember. He's like, you have expensive taste. And that's because I wanted like Nike Airs and stuff. And he said, it's too expensive. He said, you're going to have to get a good job. So I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I didn't understand any other ways of generating money. You work, you get paid. I'm a hard worker. You guys know this, that I'm very willing to put in effort. That's how I was raised. So the next thing to do, okay, I'm gonna open a gym then, because that, in my mind, that will allow me to make more money and have more freedom in my life.
So what was your income generally speaking, annualized at the time you transitioned into your gym?
So when I left Equinox, I was probably making around 50,000 a year. And then I was training privately, and I probably made a little bit more than that. I would say like I was taking in maybe 70 to 80,000 gross. And keep in mind, in California and Pasadena and everywhere else, it's just a lot of people hire personal trainers. So that's probably not typical of what would happen in other areas of the country. But yeah, but I was still working. I was training 40 to 50 hours a week doing that.
But before we jump from there, and that was probably what, still 5-7 years ago?
10 years ago now, in 2000. So it's been 10 years.
Setting aside inflation, if you're still there in that situation now, what would your income be?
If I was, I mean, it would be a little higher than that, but because of you mean when I owned the gym, or just if I was a private trainer doing what I was doing?
Yeah, when you're peaking on your income as a private trainer, Equinox and private training, you're on about gross of 70, 80, that's gross, not net. If you'd stayed doing that 10 years later, what would your income be?
I think it's probably the same, is my guess. So I'll give you another story. Back then at Equinox, you were required of things outside of the training session, meeting with managers and program design. It wasn't really program design by size standard, but then a few years after I left, there was a class action and Equinox settled, but I think now they track everything. So I don't think they pay them much more than they did then. It's still a small percentage of what the client pays.
So you moved in to becoming a gym owner. So without getting, you go to the level of detail that you want, but how did that transition unfold? And, what was your initial thoughts about it as you started it out?
Well, our family, a little bit of money from my dad, and the other two guys did the same thing. We bought our equipment. We got it for cheaper than probably a lot of people do, because we bought it from China. So in the end, we probably spent about $60,000 on everything we needed to get a gym. And within the first couple of months, we had to pay the rent ourselves. So the rent for that facility was about 3,000 square feet. So it was about $5,000 a month. So between the three of us, we were paying like a little under $1,500 initially. And then we started to get trainers, and we were able to bring that down a little bit, but we weren't making any money from the gym. It was still just what we would have made if we weren't training in the gym. So really nothing had changed, other than now we have a facility and we feel good about ourselves, like we've made it because we opened the gym.
So just to be real clear, you're covering the overheads and you're putting the time and administrative work into running the facility, but your income is no more than would have been had you been a trainer there.
Yeah, that's right.
And how did that feel? And at what point in time did you come to any realizations?
Well, I didn't come to the realizations immediately, because we did make some money from the gym, but I felt good. I felt like I'd achieved something because I opened the gym. So I think a lot of trainers do, but within the first couple of years, we were able to take some money out. But the most I ever made from the gym alone was $2,000 a month. And then I can go into more detail on all this, I will go into more detail on the stories and the realizations, but basically, when you break that down, all the hours I was putting in admin, running the gym, and so forth, that came down to like $10 an hour, which no matter what you charge as a trainer, that's substantially less than you could make just doing another session. It's even less than the LA Fitness.
Yeah. Wow. So how many years did you go down that path for?
Well, in total, so I sold my share of the membership after 5 years, 2017. Yeah, I think that's when it was. I started to shift because I joined the program in 2014, KSI. I think it was, I want to say it was, well, it might have been around 2014. It's probably late 2013, where I was really busy as usual. So I'd train, 7 clients a day, let's say, and I was there in the morning to do admin or whatever, and I had to stay late or whatever. So I'm pretty tired. It was really busy. I knew what my income was from the gym. And I was thinking to myself, this isn't really growing as quickly as I anticipated. And I don't think it's going to speed up more than it is. And I was 32 or something at the time. So when I'm 40, this is probably not going to be much different. And on top of that, I was having thoughts about, is what I'm doing really helping my clients? So yeah, I had a number of moments where I was starting to question that. And then ultimately it was a life event where my grandfather passed away. He was the first close relative to die. And I kept his obituary on my computer for a week. And I learned a lot. First of all, I was dealing with death for the first time, so that was interesting. But I also learned a lot about him that I didn't know about him when he was alive. And I was pretty proud of the man he was. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, what am I going to be in this, 10, 20 years based on what I'm doing right now? And I didn't have a serious relationship outside of the gym, like a girlfriend like that. And I didn't know how I would be able to. So I was having some serious questions about the direction of my life.
So what were you thinking about for the future? You wanted an alternative. You wanted to make some changes. Did you have any plans as to where those changes could be or take you?
Well, so the only thing I had ever really read that was outside of the path that I've been on from a financial or business standpoint was I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was like 23. So I had a little bit of an understanding about like buy assets and so forth, what Robert Kiyosaki says. But I didn't have anybody in my life that could guide me in what to do there. And my dad is an engineer. He's a good father, good man, but he's middle class and he doesn't really have much understanding of that. I was never taught about money or any of those things. So I was looking. That was a point where, as you say, the teacher, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. I was looking. And then you came to LA soon after that for a seminar that I then came to, and that's when the machine got rolling.
Well, it's been an interesting journey since then. I wouldn't, you'd say it hasn't always been smooth, and that's what happens when you make changes. But let's talk about some of the changes that you have made. Like what's the difference now compared to, what's life like now compared to what life was like when you were a gym owner?
Well, I want to share a little bit more about when I left the gym before I get into that, because I think it's important to hear for people who might want to own a gym. So as I joined KSI and my training values started to shift, my professional partners, were still where they were. So it was 2 against me. We're trying to run a gym and I'm juggling. I want to do what's best for the client. I want to adopt the KSI model, but my business partners don't want to do that. And it's increasingly, it's like a bad marriage, your tensions are growing, you're fighting. And I called an attorney that I knew, and I asked him I wanted to get an idea of, what are my options? And this is something I think for anyone that wants to open a gym, they need to know this. he said, you're probably best off walking away. He's like, small business owners get emotionally attached because they invested their own money. It's their own thing. And they usually hold on longer than they ought to because of their emotional attachment. And then he told me a story. He said, he's like, I want you to think of it like this. In the fitness industry, if the standard salary for, let's say, a gym manager is $50,000 a year, and you guys can only pay $25,000 a year, you're not profitable. And he said, so that really, I understood that. I was like, okay. And then soon after that, funny enough, one of my former partners said, hey, there's a business broker my brother knows. Why don't we meet with him and see if we can sell the gym? And the business broker told them what I knew he was going to tell them. He said, I can't sell this. He's like, your clients come here because of you. If you sell the gym, the risk of losing all the clients is really high. Nobody is going to buy that. And he said, your best bet, and you know, we can all laugh a little bit, but it's kind of sad because this probably happens. He said, is to find a trainer who has their heart set on owning a gym. And basically, he didn't use the words take advantage of them, but he said, sell it to them. They'll overpay, you know? And then soon after that is when I knew that was a good time to strike, and as far as getting some money out of it. So I asked them for a payout, and they did. So fast forward to now, I was actually reflecting on this today because I can have days like that where I just enjoy I have a lot of birds in my garden. I've built a garden, I have a house. I don't wake up at 4 a.m. anymore. I still wake up early, but that's on my own. I don't even set an alarm. And it is a totally different life. And, you know, I've had glimpses of moments where I remember what it's like, and this just the stress of having to run around all the time, you're not aware of it until it's not there anymore sometimes. And that's become really clear to me. And then my understanding of business is so much different now. I can generate money. I've become an investor in stocks. So I've made money like every day this week, and I didn't do anything in that. And I got to buy a house. Now, granted, the gym helped me to do that. But I'm learning to make smarter decisions, and my house is becoming more valuable. And as I meet new people, I can just see that they, you know, I think I shared it with you, some of you privately. I joined a networking group, and I'm not the youngest anymore when I join these things because now I'm 40, but there's still a good portion of them that are older or my age. And I was talking I've talked to a few of them, and they say how they wish they could own a house, or someday, they use those terms, you know, someday I want that to happen. If you don't have a plan or you're not on track to do it, it's going to be tough in LA. So I'm grateful that I have that.
So life is very different from a lot of perspectives. And looking forward, like when I asked you before, I said, if you'd still been in that private training situation 10 years later, and would your income be any different? And you said, no, probably not. So at the moment, knowing what you know and doing what you do you think you'll be in a better place financially in 10 years' time than you are now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I've had conversations with you about this, and as I've learned to open up my mind to new possibilities, I think the potential for where I could be in 10 years is still probably something I'm not quite grasping, but it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's the key. Is I think the excitement of what's possible when you believe in what you're doing and seeing the results from what you're doing. And I guess one way of affirming that is if you compare yourself, your lifestyle, your financial position, your income, etc., to some of your industry cohort, you know, people that you came through the industry with, so to speak, that obviously not in the KSI coaching program. Do you think there's evidence there of confirming the decisions you've made?
Yeah, for sure. There are still a couple of trainers that I keep in contact with that I'm friends with, and they do the same thing that they did before. But they're happy to do it that way, and that's fine. I've had to learn that was difficult for me. I've had to let go of some of my need to be recognized and done a lot of personal development. And the more I've done, that's just allowed me to understand what is possible. And, I don't think as many people actually go through with it from my experience. There's a lot of personal development available, but I'm not really sure how many people actually go through the process of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about some of the other strategies that you're in a gym. You with the promise of this is going to set me free financially. It's going to give me leverage. I'll be able to sit on the beach and someone else will run the gym for me, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
I was going to go there. So we all wanted, we're going back to when we ran the gym. Our business model was to rent space to trainers. Okay. And let's say we're paying $5,000 in rent and we get to a point where we're making like 6,000 or a little bit more each month gross. And when you're selling time, it's difficult to create a gap there. You're right about breaking even all the time because there's only 24 hours in the day. What else are you going to do? So we did what a lot of trainers do. And that was we created a group training program where we would train like 5 people at a time. And we took turns running that. And even then we probably generated another couple of grand a month. So the separation was greater, but not too much. And then we also sold supplements. So we bought them wholesale.
Well, let's go back to the group training. So, we've all seen that wave of popularity that, hey, this is the key. Get group training going and you'll make more money. It's a key to your profit success. And, books were sold on the basis that courses, people still go to courses to learn that stuff. I'm going to be blunt with you. What do you think of group training?
I don't think it's just to benefit the trainer and to target people who probably don't want to spend any money on their health in the first place. We marketed it as though it was different somehow and that everyone got a program. And I do think we believed that because I think that's kind of what you're taught when you take these certifications that are available. You somehow think that you're doing something that's different than what everyone else is doing. But in hindsight, it was exactly the same. And everybody got a program, but it was basically like, trainers come up with like a choreography in my experience. They're familiar with the layout of the gym and they have like their spots. They like to do a dance a certain way, and all the programs pretty much reflect the dance instructor. So if I was writing the program, it would be more of like whatever I like to do. And if it was the other guys, then it reflected like their favorite moves. No matter how old or young. And I'll tell you one last part of that. When this is kind of one of the moments when I was trying to balance between KSI and doing that, because it was just a mess. A guy came in, I didn't write the program, but I decided to supervise it, and he got injured that session. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. So.
Yeah, and that was injured in the moment, let alone injured a few years later as a result of it. That's a pretty powerful message for you. So neither of us are huge fans of that economic solution called group training. Now, that doesn't mean that athletes at times don't train in groups. And one of the real sad things for me is in the marketing industry, it says, well, look at athletes, they train in groups, therefore you should too. If you're in a team sport, you're probably training in a group for a reason. If you're a group of golfers, I can sure as shit tell you're not going to be training as a group of golfers because you're in an individual sport. So, it's a bogus line of convincing the industry that, well, look at athletes, they do it. Well, that's rubbish. Some do it because they're in team sports, and there's other reasons they're doing it. But it's they're a lot more homogenic group in that sport, in gender and age and interests, et cetera, than a diverse group of humans. Like as I love to say, we don't say to the zip code, okay, everybody in this zip code, bring your car to the mechanics this day, and everybody's going to get the same service. We don't even do that to our car. And yet, for some reason, we think it's okay for us as professionals to tell our clients that it's okay to do group training. I know the Army do it. I know there's a time and a place for it, but in the commercial world, where serving consumers, and it's meant to be for their best and highest good, fails a litmus test for me.
Right. And from a business perspective, we wanted to make more per hour and generate more income. And we continually struggled to get, we found that there was like a cap of amount of clients that would come at one time. And we struggled to get it beyond that. And so what we ended up doing was we expanded. And we did it very quickly. We weren't prepared at all for that one. A space in the same complex became available and we jumped on it. So we did have somewhat of a plan initially. We didn't have a plan the second time around. We had to spend money on more equipment, and now our rent had doubled, and we pulled back, and we were making less money now. So we tried some other things. We rented out space to like an acupuncturist and a massage therapist. And as I mentioned, we sold vitamins, we sold drinks, we sold snack bars, protein bars, that kind of thing.
So I want to come back to supplements, but before we go to that, the subletting of the space to other service providers, which is great in theory, how did it work out in practical?
I mean, it never brought us back to where that initial, when I said I was making $2,000 a month. In the remaining time that I was there before I left, we never got back to that. And you have more to manage now because now you have a tenant and they want things for their business and for their clients. And you have more work on your hands now.
And I often wonder about this. Did you have an obligation or feel an obligation to refer to them because they were your tenant?
Yeah, definitely.
And what would happen then if you weren't aligned with their values, or you didn't share their values or trust their services? And you can always say, yeah, we vetted them on the way in, but I'm sure it's not always that clear cut.
Well, for me, that was a problem because what started to happen was my business partners started to let go of their values in pursuit of just wanting to make money because they were tired of not making money. So it started to become, I don't care anymore, I just want to make money. So if this will make us more money, then let's do it. And we even sublet to a jiu-jitsu person we brought in there. So it's starting to become like overly crowded and too many different things going on, and that philosophy was happening. And I imagine that happens with gyms. You get the reality of I got to pay rent, and you have that choice. Am I gonna stick to what I believe in, or am I just gonna do whatever I have to do?
So you're raising the balance or the continuum, the conundrum between profit and purpose. And as you said, there's a large influence in American business from my experience. Personally, traveling in and out of America for over 40 years, where the end justifies the means. As long as we make money, we don't give a crap about who got hurt along the way, and we don't care if we lie, cheated, or steal. In fact, lying, cheating, stealing are values that seem to be even promoted in the American influence fitness industry by certain individuals, which says a lot about them and says a lot about the industry. But obviously, you don't share those values. You actually think that the values should be given to the client, and they should be given a care and a duty of care, which more socialistic countries like Australia talk about often about duty of care, whereas America is a little bit more capitalistic, and there's nothing wrong with capitalism, that's for sure. But we all make decisions. Are we just going to say stuff purpose and let's do whatever we can to make money, or can we make money with purpose? Do you believe you can make money with purpose?
Absolutely, I know you can. It's not even a belief. I've witnessed it. Yes, I know you can. And that was not, I didn't want to compromise on that. I mean, going back to when I was in the film industry, that's why I left the film industry. I didn't want to become that person. Like Jim Rohn says, who are you becoming? What are you becoming here? Like, that's important to me. Yes, I do want to be rich. I want to have lots of money. I want to have free time to travel and do all that stuff. But I don't want to sacrifice my soul in order to get it. And I don't think you have to. But I think that the limitations of the fitness, at least in everywhere, I suppose, the limitations make it seem like that's it. And maybe that's just the 95% of people that don't want to try to get better, and they think whatever they think.
They take the slippery slope. They go down the rabbit hole. And there's a lot of examples of that in highly promoted people in the fitness industry, at least. So, I understand it. I don't agree with it and I don't support it. But, we both, as you said, 95% of the market might think, well, let's just do it because that's the only way we can. And there's a lot of glass ceilings and a lot of roadblocks, and maybe that's just a soft option out. So we've gone through, went through the training facility. You open a gym to make more money. Then you expanded a group training. You sublet, and we talked about the outcomes. Now there's another one which I'm a big supporter of, which is providing people guidance in nutritional supplementation. I think that we're probably the best suited service provider in the industries of all the health related industries to do that. I'm not saying we're the only ones, but we're certainly well positioned to guide people in that regard, if it's coming from a congruent place. So how does it work in the gym? How do you go making money? Like, what's the business model of supplement distribution or in the retail center of a gym?
So I think it's probably similar for you guys outside the US, but here you get a business permit from, it's called like the Board of Equalization or something like that. It's a government organization. And once you get the permit, that allows you to buy products wholesale. So you have to buy whatever you're going to sell, and you have to carry inventory, and then you can then sell it. And then you get a list which has the MSRP. I don't know if you guys have that. That's the manufacturer's suggested retail price, and suggested because you can alter it or lower it, whatever you want. And it's generally, if I remember correctly, about 30% markup. And it just didn't work out that well for us. We had some challenges with that. So
you buy everything in advance, like it's not on consignment. You're paying for it up front, and then you're going to have to sell it afterwards. I'm assuming that's a cash flow drain in itself. And we'll get specific. What were the other factors that made this profit center less profitable or even unprofitable for you in this model?
Yeah, I mean, we threw away product because it sat on the shelves and stuff. But one of the limitations is that you're selling to the people that come to your facility, and we were a small facility, so the amount of potential customers was low. So no matter how many you might sell to them, we struggled to make a profit for that reason. That was a big one. And also because of carrying inventory, it just balancing that out, it was just it never really took off. I think that the larger retailers that are, known, like Vitamin Shop or something like that, for one, I think when you buy in massive bulk from a manufacturer and you're a company like that, you probably can get a cheaper price than might be offered to some small business like us. And then you can carry so much, or you can potentially offset that a little bit and make more profit just by the size of your business. Like, if you're Coca-Cola or whatever, you can use your might to win some battles that smaller businesses might not. And that was a challenge for us. So
that was a potentially off-putting experiment then. The business center, the profit center of product distribution, in this case supplements, could have put you off doing it. But
there was other stuff.
The different way.
Sorry, interrupt you, but I remember something that I wanted to share that's important. Also, you're selling multiple different brands. And so you have this issue of trust with people that can come up. Number one, it can be confusing. They don't know what to buy because you have so many brands. Why should I buy this one? Why should I buy that one? Because when there's a couple there, they might want to get the cheaper one, and you might like the other one, but you're offering more products. And then there's also, well, you used to say this brand was good, but you don't have it here. So why am I taking this one now? And that can be a little bit you got to wiggle out of that a little bit, and it's not fun.
So can I ask, what were the decisions that led you to select your brands? Like what was the driving factor on brand selection for you as a gym owner?
Yeah, so we were influenced by trends on that one. So there are definitely some gurus post 2000 that got into supplement businesses and nutrition influences. And I'm not saying that they were all bad or people that you shouldn't pay attention to, but we pretty much took our cue from some of those resources. And this is who we're going to sell. And I think also it was like, we want to come off as being different. And that, I think that's what influencers do sometimes, is they want to show that, oh, you're this, I take this, this is not what everyone else takes. And that was how we chose it. It wasn't based on that I felt any better than I did with any other brand. In fact, every brand I've pretty much had ever taken in my life at that point, I can't say that I remembered any of them being different than each other in the way I felt.
So in the same way that we put a sort of a summary on, say, group training, and we're pretty clear about that, do you believe that you, as a physical preparation coach, which is the term I prefer to use, can you distribute nutritional supplements that A, are effective for your clients, and B, is profitable? So can you serve both parties in it? Because that didn't sound like it served both parties. Like, you weren't making money and the clients weren't necessarily getting an effective product. Can it work? Yeah,
it can, but you have to be there. You have to be a little more knowledgeable on different types of business models, and there are options. But I think for small gyms that the traditional buying from a wholesaler and then selling is a taller mountain to climb.
Excellent. So one last profit center that I want to touch on before we open up to questions from the coaches on the line. What about merchandise, the old merch? Did you go down that path? And I'd be keen to know. I'm just keen to learn how that went.
I forgot about that. Yes, we tried a lot of different things, and we made T-shirts and sweatshirts. And one other thing that I didn't mention that we did is we even partnered with a local caterer and attempted at selling meals. And again, we, you have to buy that stuff. You have to buy the clothing to get it printed, and then you have to pay the guy that's going to print it. And I think we probably hired, nowadays you can go online and outsource it for really cheap, and not necessarily from a qualified graphic designer, but we paid for that. But you run into the same problem. Let's say you pay $15 to make a T-shirt, and people can go buy a T-shirt for $20. So how much profit is available? Not much. You can't, if you mark it up and you want to play the card that we're a small business, go to a farmer's market. Even my girlfriend says that sometimes it's so expensive at this. And they are trying to make a profit, and the opportunity in a small setting like that is a lot more difficult, and they can't afford to cut the price like a larger company could do, in other areas. So
we've titled our chat today, "If you want to be rich and happy," and let's take a moment to, if you want to be rich and happy, don't open gym. And obviously there's a little bit of tongue in cheek in that, but let's talk about the influence on that title, because obviously we've got to give credit to the influence on the title. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to do that?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to do it. So it's a reference to a Robert Kiyosaki book called "If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to School." And I think there's a lot of similarities that came to mind. Originally, I was kind of joking about it, but then I thought about it and I was like, no, that's perfect, because I've pretty much done every that I can think of. Maybe there's things in the gym industry that I didn't do or haven't done that are popular now, but I tried all of those things. And it's not that you can't make a living, but you make a lot of sacrifices, and your profit potential isn't what I think people make it out to be. And I would be really surprised if there are that many gyms that do well. I'm sure there are some that do, but I think the majority of them don't provide the life that people think they would.
And we're very real clear when we say don't do that well. If we were judging it by how warm a feeling you've got, you'd say they all do really well at some stage. But if you're judging it from a pure economic perspective, time for money, years for money, I think objectively you're accurate. Your statement is pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I've rented space from other gym owners too. And during the pandemic, I know that that's their life. Like they're at that gym all the time, and if that's what you want and you're okay with it, then yeah. But I didn't find it to be, from a business perspective, as worthwhile. Like going back to that conversation with the attorney, understanding business a little bit more, you can be making money and not be doing well, if that, and I don't think trainers always understand that.
Yes, and so whilst we were a little bit tongue in cheek with our title, I don't think there was no attempt to be sensationalist. Tom's being honest, and it's great to be able to chat with someone who has actually done all this stuff. I mean, I enjoy talking to people who've done all this stuff, and the more people we talk to like this, the greater the sample size. Because I've watched this phenomenon unfold. Obviously, I was in the industry for 20 years, 2 decades before this became a thing. And it's been 2 decades and more since it became a thing. And we're getting to see, and I've cleaned up a lot of the outcomes of this. And it's pretty rare you bump into someone on the beach at Waikiki, or more preferably up in the North Shore or Kauai would be my preference. And you sit beside them on the beach and they say, by the way, I'm just chilling on the beach, and my boys and girls are back home running the gym for me in LA, and I've been kicking it back here at at the North Shore for the last 3 years. I don't expect that's going to happen.
No, definitely not. I would bet money that it won't ever happen.
And so much to chat about around that one. So I'm opening the floor up now. Any questions? Taking this opportunity to chat with Tom. He's gone on a journey that, I'd probably have to pay him a lot if I'd said in advance what he had to do, and I'd probably have to fund it and give him incentives to go and do it. But he did it of his own free will, and he learned from it. So here's a chance to put a question to a man who's lived the dream, and that's in inverted commas.
Tom, I have a question. Yeah. Thanks for presenting your experience. It's I've seen a lot of that thing too. I'm very lucky I didn't go down the path. So Tom, regarding about opening a gym business, I'd like to ask if prior to opening it, were there any influences or encouragement from loved ones and close friends who knew nothing about the fitness industry but had this just this preconception of encouraging you to open the gym just because it's a business? And yeah,
that's a good question, Wei. I think what you're asking is, did my family suggest it before I even brought it up or something to that effect?
No, like that idea was in motion and they pushed and encouraged it.
Oh, nobody pushed me to do anything. So going back to my family, my family, as far as their values around money, and it's work hard, get paid, that's kind of how I was raised. And there's no understanding of any other ways of generating money. But I really am grateful because they've always supported whatever I wanted to do. There's never been, you must do this, you must do that. But if this is what you're going to do, we support you to do it. There was no pushing there. My dad in particular has always been, the only thing he ever said was, you got to go to college. And he said, you study whatever you want, but you're gonna go to college. And that was, and he paid for it. And that was it. But once I opened the gym, my grandfather, who's 91 now, and his father worked in like a cement factory or something a long time ago. He really was impressed by the fact that I did it, because I had a business, So I hope that answers your question.
Very good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I mean, it's good that at least they didn't pressure you to do anything that you didn't like, or they didn't pressure you to rush in any decision.
I feel very fortunate on that. My dad still doesn't do that. He's always said, I know that you're going to do what you want to do. So I think I've been a bit of a stubborn kid in that regard too. So he knows what he can, when to let me do it.
Excellent.
Hi, Tom, Don. Thanks for those insights. And I know maybe some of the decisions you made were tough, and they might have been easier if because you had some good motivation and good values. But what would be your toughest decision that you made, or the scariest? move that you had to make?
You know, some of the decisions that scared me, I'll be honest, when I signed the loan for the house was probably one of the scarier things to me. And that was just because it challenged my beliefs around money. You know, I was okay making a certain amount of money. That was what I was used to, and being in debt a certain amount. And that probably presented some of the bigger challenges is when I got used to bigger numbers, both on both sides. And the personal development, that was more scary to me than anything else. I'm willing to try things. That's in life. In order to learn, you got some. I want to do it, but that was the scarier things for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great point around the mortgage, and that's obviously an influence that we build into our program. But I also probably saw a little bit of trepidation around changing your business model. So when we met, you were in the, as a gym owner in a partnership, et cetera, and there were some questions in my mind whether you would have the courage to transition, whatever that transition is going to be. Like I didn't have your plan for you, but I just knew you were probably a little bit confined in that model from a lot of different ways. And
I guess I would expand then on what I was saying with the loan, because it went hand in hand in that time, because that was when the business partnership was dissolving, and I had invested so much time in the gym that my entire life revolved around that gym. And I think that's what a lot of trainers experience, is like your friends, like everything in your life is you're there all the time. And so when I was transitioning and beyond that, I didn't have a lot of that anymore, and that was scary. I'd never gone through that, and that was the personal development part, where I was learning to be a new person. That's the saying, your new life is going to cost you your old life, and that was very true. So I did not expect that, Ian. I really just sometimes naively believe that people are always going to see things the way how amazing the KSI model was, that they were going to be the same way. And I think I thought that they were going to, these are my friends, why won't they have the same values I have? And then, so that was a bit of a shock to me.
Well, I'm intrigued you use the word naive, because I reflect often in preparing my future manuscripts around the winning and losing sequels, and naive would probably sum up a lot of my situations in terms of how I misinterpreted, because I naively saw what others may or may not have done. So yeah, I can relate to that, Tom. But you went through a lot of changes in a short period of time, as you said, and they were all wrapped around that, becoming a homeowner for the first time, and taking on that mortgage for the first time, and some of those big boy adult moves that we make as adults, and then we get used to it and we change our perceptions. So yeah, great. John, how was that done?
What's that?
How was that?
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Yep. You're welcome, Don. Good question. Thank you.
Good.
Hi, Tom.
Hey,
I
Kelly.
just want to say thank you, because I've never heard your story, and it's great, all the things you've achieved, and also you don't know what you don't know, and when you've been through what you have, sharing your experience to others that haven't done it, maybe want to do it, but actually have taken all of your valuable lessons. So no, thank you. I did have a question, and it's based around moving forwards more than anything. All that you've experienced over these last 15 years, what does your day look like now for doing what you want to do compared to back in, say, 2013, when you were still owning a gym? Like, what does your ideal day look like?
Well, I'm at home most of the time. My gym is at home now, and I have a wonderful garden. I tried to put it on my in my background, but my computer processor is too slow, so it covered me up. But I don't have to drive around all the time, and I get to do, even when I work harder days, if I put it that way, I still have a lot of free time, which I really enjoy. I don't do 7-8 hours of training anymore, and I can be more selective of who I want to talk to. But it's just my time is more, and I've had the ability to find other interests, to develop more of a life. I have a girlfriend. I've learned that I like gardening, that I like building stuff. I can read. I mean, it's really whatever I want to do. I can go to the beach. I'm in LA. And I have the iconic palm trees right outside my house.
So in the old days, 15 hours a day you're in the gym. How many hours a day, on average, are you in a gym or with client contact?
Do you mean a public gym?
Now, I know you were 15 hours in the gym 10 years ago. What's your average time in the gym or client contact now per day?
Yeah, busy day is like 4 hours.
Yeah, I
But
think
that's at my home gym. That's in my backyard.
That speaks a lot to Kelly's question, I think, because that's a stark contrast. I mean, sometimes you could spend 4 hours a day driving to your clients, Tom.
Well, yeah, when I worked that's a good point, Kelly. When I worked at a gym, I had to commute to the gym, and then, usually you have a break between clients, but I lived far away. When I started at Equinox, I lived in LA traffic. I lived like an hour away from the gym. If I wanted to go home between breaks, I needed to have like a 4-hour break so that I could go home for like a half-hour nap and come back. And it was exhausting. It was very exhausting.
And just real clear, Kelly, in LA, that's 2 miles away. That's a joke.
Not too, but it can be like that here. Yeah, it was not that far.
Yeah, when you're in a traffic jam in LA, you often wonder if there is any light at the end of the tunnel. But LA is not the only city with a traffic jam issue. Every city has congestion in commuter traffic.
Yeah, and then when you're at the gym, even if you're not, you're just forced to have that public persona on. You don't get any time to yourself if that's important to you. Some people don't need it, but that's something I like. I don't always want to have to talk to everybody. Let's say I want to go off and be by myself or read or whatever I want to do, and you're sitting in the gym cafeteria. They have the little shop, and everybody wants to talk to you or something else. That's more energy you're exuding, and you're not getting paid for that.
Great points. Okay, any final questions for Tom? Excellent. So I think Tony
said something.
Yeah, his mic isn't working, but he has a question. So let's bring that one up, Tom.
Yeah, so Tony says that his mic's not working, but were there any light bulb moments that made me realize the KSI way was the business model that I wanted to adapt? Well, that's a good question. My values were what guided me first and foremost. So what attracted me to KSI before I knew anything before we even talked about business was Ian's values. And I want to find the best way to train. I don't want to hurt my clients. I want to actually help them. And I felt like that was going to be it. But to give you an insight as far as the business model and just the holistic of the program, we're a little bit aside our business, is when I first became a high-level coach, and we do a call every Sunday as a high-level coach. And I remember we'll give updates of our business sometimes. And I just remember what really struck me is I was ready to give business updates. I've never shared this, Ian. And then people gave life updates. And coaches I think John even asked me, because I had gone to Japan on a trip maybe a month before that, like how that was. And I was like, you want to know about me as a person? And that really resonated with me too. So then when I learned more about the business model, having gone through all my experiences, it was an easy thing to understand, and it was attractive.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point you made there. When the new coaches come into that level of mastermind group, so to speak, they get a bit of a culture shock because, it's we take a very holistic approach. If we just sat there and talk sets and reps and clients the whole time, I'd probably be the first one to leave, because there's so much more to life than sets and reps. There's more to life. There's more to training than strength and conditioning, and there's sure as hell a lot more to life than sets and reps. So it's we really do want to treat the whole person, talk to the whole person.
You're welcome, Tony. Thanks for the question.
Excellent. Well, Tom, it's been great, and I think the opportunity you've given us to get some insights. I said you've walked that path that I've seen so many people be encouraged to do, and if it works out for them, fantastic. But you've been pretty transparent and honest and frank with some of your observations, and that might help somebody moving forward, learn from your experiences. And that's our hope, that they can learn from that and your willingness to be transparent about it.
Thanks, Ian, and thank you for having me on. And thanks everybody for listening to me and the great questions. Really appreciate it.
And as Tom said, thanks to everybody who's joined us on the call today, and the people listening to this moving forwards will serve many people for many years to come, because the question of how do I enhance my life as a physical preparation coach, which includes how do I enhance my business model as a physical preparation coach, is relevant today as it was yesterday, and it'll be as relevant tomorrow as it is today. It's not going away. When people have the opportunity of learning from the past if they wish to take those lessons. So thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to watching your all journey moving forward, Tom. And we know the excitement Tom has for where we'll be in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years' time as we play the long game. Good stuff, Tom. Thanks, everyone.